really want to have outsized returns, if you really want to find investments or business opportunities that are super lucrative, super unique, you just have to be playing on a different field. The US government's about to change some of the laws, which will make the tax, it's actually called Section 280E, which prevents cannabis companies from being able to deduct their expenses and basically makes it impossible to run a profitable cannabis company.
There's a big election coming up. Has it been signaled from both parties that they're going to reschedule, or is this from one party signaling that they're going to eliminate Section 280E?
DEC, Diversified Energy Company. They're based in the US and they are a natural gas company. In the US, 40% of all energy generated is from a natural gas powered power plant.
Cody, back from New York, the man of mystery at the Weird Shit Investing Conference in New York City. I'm interested. We missed each other by 24 hours in New York City. And yeah, I was there for something, working with a client. You came in for this very interesting conference, which we're going to dive into today. And tell me, how was your trip? How was your trip to New York?
It was great. New York, as you know, as anybody knows who's been there, it's a vibrant city. No matter what bad stuff is going on there, you just land in New York and you feel the energy. There's all kinds of stuff going on, good food, loud noises, weird smells. Feel like there's immigrants always in New York, just hustling, living the American dream. So I love going to New York. It's that energy that really pumps me up. I was there for the Weird Shit Investing Conference. I'm going to call it the WSI conference just to be a little more professional. And the conference.
We don't need to be professional.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to be polite. But the name of the conference is edgy, and it's edgy for a reason because there's all these interesting ideas shared. And just to give a little background on it, the conference is produced and put on by a good friend of mine named Sven Lorenz. He is originally from Germany. He now lives on the island of Sark in the British Channel Islands, and I'll dive into Sark in just a moment. But Sven is an international writer, investor, and just really well-connected person. And he put up on this event, the WSI conference, one night in London and then 2 nights later in New York. And in London, he had about 30 guests come and speak with a couple, they call them voyeurs, which is capital allocators watching. And then in New York, I think we had a little over 20 people present with a couple, maybe 3 or 4 capital allocators. And the presenters range from people like myself who are interesting or doing unique investing deals around the world. And then some were major hedge fund managers that are managing hundreds of millions of dollars. So it was quite a wide range of presenters, but the ideas that were shared were truly unique. It really lived up to its WSI title.
Walk us through. So you show up in New York. What's the kickoff look like? Where did you guys meet? What was the environment like?
Yeah, so the event itself was in Tribeca. It was in this building that was actually the Tribeca Film Festival was being held at the same exact time. And if anybody remembers this in the news a little while ago, Robert De Niro was having this huge event.
Oh yeah, dude, he was.
Yeah, there was all these protesters, and you know that guy with the horns that has the American flag that took over the Capitol building and all that. There was a bunch of guys dressed up like that, and there was kind of like a protester-esque environment out there, and it was.
And they were protesting
one of the things you walk in the building.
They were protesting your event or something different.
No, they were protesting Robert De Niro, but it happened. Our event was in the same building, so it was just this like bizarre, group of people. It was a film festival and kind of this protest, but at the same time, this WSI investing conference. And
dude, that's New York. That's New York. I was there,
totally.
And we're having dinner. Right behind us, Kevin Bacon's eating dinner. You just like saw Joaquin Phoenix doing some weird stuff on the street. That's just New York, man. It's so funny.
Totally. And that's why I love New York.
Yeah.
New York's got this energy. There's plenty of problems there, but no matter what, New York will always be one of those cities, if not one of the most important cities in the world, where things just happen. And it was certainly happening when we were there. So I started early in the morning, started like 8 in the morning, and we had, like I said, about 20 presentations.
People flew in, right, from all over?
All over, from Europe, the Americas. I think somebody came in from Australia, all over the place. And each presentation was limited to 15 minutes with about 5 minutes for questions. And Sven, he's German, so he's like super on the clock, like super timely. And we had these presentations all day long with a lunch break and a couple coffee breaks. And it was, I got to say, it was very regiment we kept to the clock. And part
I
of the
love
beauty
that.
was, what's that?
I love that German efficiency.
Totally. And part of the beauty of presenting within 15 minutes is that you have to say the most important things or else no one gets what you're saying. So it was rapid fire of all these interesting ideas. And I was fortunate enough to be able to present about Guyana, which we spoke about in episode 1, and which I was able to, and I'll dive into in a little bit, but I was able to tell the story of Guyana and then 3 interesting ways to invest in the country, which I shared with the group there. So It was a great experience, and Swen did a fantastic job, and I was lucky enough to rub shoulders with some major hedge fund managers and some pretty serious investors there.
Epic. Yeah, man, it sounded really, really cool. And again, this podcast is like also for me to get kind of a download because we haven't chatted that much about your trip. And Sven's a really interesting dude. He, lives on an island of Sark off the coast of the UK that he bought, populated with people, and then I believe he's taking it public. So he's got a whole other interesting side thing going on outside of this Weird Shit Investing conference. And it's just a dude truly living in playing by different rules, which I love.
Yeah. And I'll tell the story real quick about Sark. So Sark is an island in the British Channel Islands. You have Guernsey, Jersey, and then Sark. And it's really confusing. And even the Brits will say it's confusing. They are a part of the UK, but they are run by separate parliaments, and each island basically has its own laws, its own little government, and can set up its own tax regime, everything. So they're not separate countries per se, but they kind of are recognized as separate countries. So Swen moved to the island of Sark about a decade ago, and he's now in the process of buying up about a quarter of the island, and he's going to take that investment public. And the best way I can explain it from a non-Brit investor looking in, this is equivalent to saying, hey, say I'm going to buy stock or invest in the company itself. This would be like, I'm going to invest in Hong Kong or Singapore or Isle of Man or one of these kind of tax haven-esque type places. And Swen is doing that right now. And you won't hear about this for a while. It was on the front page of the Financial Times a couple weeks ago, but when they go public, it's probably a couple years out. He's putting the deal together right now. But like you said, Austin, to explain how unique Swen is and the ideas he has, this is crazy. He's taking a little British Isle public, and it's such a cool story. And it's also an incredible opportunity for people who want to move there. Low taxes, like zero government. There's like 1 police officer on the entire island. There's zero crime. You have to bike everywhere. It's a whole nother story. We'll have to have him on for one episode to explain it all. But that's the type of person Swen is.
I love stuff like that because so much of creating things is just being exposed to ideas that break whatever paradigm that you have in your mind. And when you connect with somebody like that who's doing things at a very different level, it creates so many ideas of what's possible. But today, let's dive into it because I want to go in. You're going to share your kind of top 3 ideas you took away from this conference, and give us kind of a rundown of some of the things that you learned. So why don't we dive into it? Like, you're in Tribeca, you get there early, you get pitched all these ideas. What was your you're writing down notes. What was your first one that you're like, this is a really, really good idea that you take? What was your big takeaway? First takeaway?
Yeah, so I'll just say bigger picture. I'm in this room of people and they're all uber successful. They're on a different playing level. And I will say just the general observation is that, hey, if you really want to have outsized returns, if you really want to find investments or business opportunities that are super lucrative, super unique, you just have to be playing on a different field. Like, you can't be with the sheep. You got to be in a totally different place, playing a different game. And I would say that was
you're talking about outside of public markets.
No, some of these were public markets, but the opportunities and how they're finding it. I'm going to share 3 main ones. I'll go into it, but I'll share one quick example. The first presentation was about Greece and how Greece had that sovereign debt crisis. This is a while ago, almost a decade ago. I think many people in the U.S. watched this, kind of onlookers, like what's going on in Greece. And really what happened was there was a collapse in the economy. A lot of the pensioners who were receiving their retirement money got totally screwed over. The country had to recapitalize all their banks. It was a mess. Well, since then, Greece has kind of gotten their stuff together. And right now, there's still an opportunity to buy the bonds at huge discounted prices and get super high yield. And people are so turned off from Greece because of this reputation that what they went through. But if you look at the underlying value and reputation of these bonds, it's actually a really good deal. So the first presentation was basically showing us how to buy these Greek bonds through a publicly traded company that is holding them. And it's, I don't want to say it's a for sure, double or something like that, but that's basically what was being pitched. So
I see. Yeah.
That's a quick example of the types of games these investors are playing. Like, no one would think about this, and it's going to an area that has a bad reputation. And that was what kicked off the event. So I'm going to go deeper into 3 other examples, but yeah, just to give people a taste of what we were hearing for the whole day.
For sure. So yeah, so very interesting. The first one, give us kind of a rundown. What was your first thing that you wrote down and you underlined, being like, all right, this is a good idea, something I'm interested in?
So the first one that I kind of stuck out to me was about a cannabis company. Anybody can buy this. And by the way, this is not investing advice. Do your own research. This is, just me sharing a story. And it's about maps. It's this company called Weed Maps, and it's exactly what you think it would be. It's a website that has mapped out all the dispensaries in the cannabis industry. And I actually wrote an article about this a year ago. So to see this presentation was very interesting because it was almost, verified that I was on the right track. And so the quick backstory is Weed Maps is this public company now. They have a web presence where if you search like cannabis near me or dispensary in Los Angeles or whatever term you're going to search, they dominate the SEO market and their website pops up. So that's the first bit of interesting value that this company has. They also integrate into the actual payment processors in dispensaries so they can keep track of data. They can do all kinds of stuff. So that's the company itself. It's a picks and shovels play in the cannabis industry. And the investment case that we were presented was, hey, this company is cheap right now. The cannabis industry has been beat down. The tax code in the U.S. is horrible for the cannabis industry. Just basically everything that you could possibly think of is going against this company. And the investment case was, hey, the U.S. government's about to change some of the laws, which will make the tax, it's actually called Section 280E, which prevents cannabis companies from being able to deduct their expenses and basically makes it impossible to run a profitable cannabis company. There's speculation.
It's so insane to think about that, right? Like, we're at a point where people are running businesses, the fact that you can't deduct your expenses. Yeah,
it's wild. And that's one of, and if for anybody listening who doesn't know, I was pretty early investor in the cannabis industry. This is 2014, 15, 16. And there was a lot of great opportunities and a lot of great stuff happened, but so much failure in that industry that so many people lost money. It's obscene. And there's a lot of things to point a finger at for why that happened. But one of the big things was that all of these things within the U.S. government that we thought was going to happen just never happened. And one of it was this tax code issue. So in the coming years, the government has signaled they are going to change a lot of this. And if they do change this tax code, there's going to be a lot of companies that benefit. And one of them is Weed Maps. Their ticker is MAPS, MAPS. And you can go on and do your own research in terms of looking at the valuation and all that. But this presentation we received was looking at the company, seeing what they do, seeing how they can benefit from this change in the tax code, and then also realizing how big the cannabis market is in the U.S. One statistic alone, this tax change will save $2 billion in taxes from the industry of the cannabis alone, just from this one change that's predicted to come up. And Weed Maps is one of the companies that will benefit from this. So that was the first one.
So they will. So overall, if Section 280E gets eliminated, you're saying that $2 billion of taxes that are currently going to the government will be eliminated because they'll be able to deduct some of their expenses from their business operations, which for somebody running a business, that's just normal, right? That's like, I can't imagine running a business without being able to do that. It's insane. But the margins in cannabis for a long time have been so high that you could potentially, I guess, run a business. But That's crazy.
Yeah, and also,
Eh,
but that'll then allow companies to make money and grow, because right now
for sure.
most companies are in purgatory where they're like, okay, I can't deduct my expenses. I'm barely
I
keeping
can't
my
grow.
head afloat here. How am I supposed to grow my business? This is crazy. So even though the government will be, quote, losing out on money, in fact, companies will actually do better, and in the long term probably benefit everything and everyone much more.
How, okay, like diving into this a little bit, right? There's a big election coming up. Has
Hmm.
it been signaled from both parties that they're going to reschedule, or is this from one party signaling that they're going to eliminate Section 280E?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and the the silent part. This is Trump versus Biden, right? And
Yeah,
so when Trump was in office, there was nothing really said about cannabis. When Biden was in, before he got elected, he said a lot of things. He actually didn't hasn't done anything really.
yeah.
To be fair to both candidates, there's, the swamp DC is just this bureaucratic nightmare, and to get anything to change is tremendously difficult. And that's not even considering all of the third party interests that are inside DC lobbying for all kinds of different interests. So, most recently, though, the DEA signaled that they would be rescheduling cannabis, and this reschedule would then change the tax code subsequently. And whether or not this was done specifically by the Biden administration, there's debate for that. This has been years in the making, so I'm not sure if there's anybody that can really, raise their hand and take credit for it. But this is almost certainly going to happen within the, next couple of years. So again, this company Maps is
Would be
positioned.
a big
Yeah,
beneficiary.
and I want to credit who shared this. This was from Clark Square Capital. This guy is kind of anonymous. He runs a Substack newsletter. So if you wanted to search Clark Square Capital, he presented this idea, and he has the presentation you can download on his blog. I just want to give the guy credit because he's the one who presented it, and that's a pseudonym, Clark Square Capital.
We'll put a link in the show notes
Cool,
so you can go check it out.
cool. All right, let's
Cool.
move on to
Now,
the second one. Are you good at that?
yeah,
Okay.
let's do it. What's your number
Second
two?
one was actually shared in the UK, so I wasn't there for the presentation and live, but I did get to see it later on, and I got to see the information about it. This was shared by Terrence Mole. He's the head of investment strategy at Seven Investment out of the UK, and
Yep.
they're legit investors. And this is a US based investment idea that he's shared. So this is why this is one of my favorites, being based in the US. And this is based on natural gas. So I've been talking
Which is
about
something you've been talking about for a long time.
yeah. And to give some background to the listeners, natural gas is at a 30-year load, not inflation adjusted. So the last time natural gas was this cheap was 30 years ago, not taking into account inflation. And what that really means is natural gas is almost free right now. And the
This
reason
is like
why
dirty talk for Cody. You have to understand. If you guys don't know Cody very well, he loves stuff like this.
Yeah, I love just finding when there's a chart and it goes so low that it's almost like at the bottom of the chart. I'm like, oh yeah, let's go like poke around in there. I did this in
Cheap,
uranium about
hated
5 years ago.
assets.
Yeah, I love that stuff, and I think there's some famous investors, maybe Jim Rogers or I don't know, a lot of famous people saying, oh, I like when there's money in the corner room and I just go over and pick it up. And this is one of those opportunities I see with natural gas right now. So Terrence Mole shared this idea. The stock is DEC. Diversified Energy Company. They're based in the U.S. and they are a natural gas company. They have they capture natural gas out of the earth. And Terrence's thesis is that this company got caught up in some litigation, in addition to natural gas prices sinking and all kinds of company issues, have put this company in a situation where if or when natural gas rebounds, this company is positioned to, in his words, quintuple. Now, I'm not going to do any price predictions here. Everybody can do their own research, but DEC is a super interesting company. And so just to give a little bit more background on natural gas, in the US, 40% of all energy generated is from a natural gas powered power plant. So if you think, oh, there's a green revolution, we're going to go to solar, wind, all that, maybe that's coming sometime, but for the foreseeable future, the energy in our nation, 40% of it is generated from natural gas. Now, where is that natural gas coming from? That's the second part of this whole thing. The U.S. right now is the number one exporter and producer of oil. We're pumping about 13 million barrels a day, and a big byproduct of that is natural gas. And from the fracking revolution, a large part of that natural gas is coming from there. So the US has got a ton of natural gas. That's why it's almost free right now. However, once we start to export some of that gas, and again, commodity markets go up and down, the price will rebound. So this idea of buying this cheap, hated asset, and remember back in the news, people were like, oh, we're going to ban natural gas barbecues and stovetops and all that. Like, that's not going to happen. This is a perfect play for someone who says, hey, I'm going to park my money in natural gas right now. I'll wait 5-10 years, and I'm going to quintuple my money. So that was my second favorite investment.
So, and just to be clear what you said, because I think it's a really interesting thing to key on, is the US is the leader in oil production in the world, right? And natural gas is a byproduct of this. So this is one of the reasons, because we've done such a good, like, fracking. It's interesting, fracking 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there's all this conversation about all the negative consequences of fracking, but really the ship has sailed. Like, we're fracking everywhere. We're producing a lot of oil, and this natural gas is a byproduct of the fracking process. Is that right?
It's exactly right. And I've explained it, I think, in the last, or in a different episode we recorded. When you pump oil, natural gas is a byproduct. And if you ever see an oil derrick, an oil rig operating, sometimes you see a little pipe with a flame coming off of it. That's burning the extra natural gas. And instead of burning,
we talked about this in the Bitcoin mining episode, that like that's powering Bitcoin mines in Argentina.
Exactly. And so instead of burning that off, why not capture it? And that's what in fracking, there's actually a larger percentage or ratio of gas to oil in that process. And so capturing that gas is a whole nother market that these companies can capitalize on.
Cool. Great. So DEC is number 2.
Yeah.
Let's go to number 3 here.
Yeah. Do your own research on that one, but it's definitely an interesting company.
DEC, DYR. Do your own research. Okay. So number 3, Iridium.
Yeah, this one is super cool. I love this story. I will give a quick note that the person that shared this, it's confidential. They didn't want their name out there. They did not want their fund name. They're a major investor. However, if you would like to get in contact with the person who can do this, you need to get in contact with Sven Lorenz. I will leave it there. That's how you get involved in this play. So this investment thesis is in iridium. Iridium is a rare precious metal that literally comes from space. So it comes from like asteroids that hit the Earth, and you can also get iridium out of mining for other metals. It's a byproduct of other mining operations.
What is it used for?
Yeah, great question. So it's used for like super high end equipment. It's actually used in space for space equipment. It's very corrosion resistant. So it doesn't rust. It's very strong. It's got all these properties. You can look it up and read the whole element summary of it. But let's just say it's this metal that is not aluminum or copper or iron. It's a very rare metal. And the investment thesis here is that this metal is going to go up a lot in price. And the whole presentation, like I said, it was very confidential, so I can't repeat every single detail. But let's just say that it was so compelling that I had to bring it up here. And the question is, how do you invest in this? How do you invest in iridium? And it's tough. There's no ETF and there's no direct stock that you can invest in it. You can purchase the metal itself, but there's large premiums during the transaction of buying it and selling it.
And how would you actually do that?
What's that?
How do you purchase the metal?
Yeah, so
like
you
in
can
jewelry or what?
Yeah, you can get it like little bars of iridium. You can put it into jewelry, or you can set up an industrial metal account. And the industrial metal account, you go through a broker, they buy the metal for you, they store it for you, and then they'll sell it for you. But of course, there's pretty large premiums on the buying and selling, as well as the storage costs. But if you believe in the fact that this metal is going to go up a lot in price, then it's a very interesting investment. So before I dive into more about iridium, I don't have much more to say about it actually, because it's a really rare metal, and I don't know.
So is it mostly for like industrial uses? Is that kind of like the main use of it?
Yeah, and I think the simplest way to think about this is that as there's more technology, as there's more computers, as there's more quantum computing and all this technical computer hardware, there's the need for finer and finer metals that are not only
Yeah.
either they conduct electricity or do these different things. They're also very pure. They're not going to rust. They're not going to cause any issues in these very, very fine pieces of electronic hardware. And the more that we invest in space equipment, computers, these types of metals are going to be in demand more and more. So again, I'm not going to dive into iridium too much because I'm not the expert here, but I want to give 3 examples of other metals who have had these price spikes in the past couple of years. And these price spikes are crazy. So the first one is uranium. And I actually invested in uranium in around 2016, 17. I'm still holding it today. I'm probably going to sell off pretty soon because we've seen a really good run up and annualized return has been really good. But just this time period from 2020 to 2024, uranium was $25 a pound in 2020, and now it's $100 a pound in 2024. So that's a 4x, right? $25 to $100. Not bad in 4 years. That's a 25% annualized return. Great. That's uranium. That's the first example. The second example is gallium. Again, I'm not an expert on all these metals, but gallium was $150 a kilo in 2020. And then 2 years later, it was $500 a kilo. So we're talking not like annualized returns of double digits. We're talking triple digit annualized returns.
Yeah.
Then the third one is rhodium. Rhodium is an investment that the guy who presented about iridium already did. Rhodium went from $400 an ounce in 2017 to $30,000 an ounce in 2021. Wow. So this guy crushed it. And that was rhodium. That play is pretty much over unless the cycle is resetting for rhodium. But the point is he sees something similar with iridium where this price is going to skyrocket. And again, for any investor that likes things that have the potential to blow up, to go, that hockey stick chart, iridium was this one that was super interesting. I also just liked it because investing in metal is so easy to understand. Like if you told me about the bond situation in Greece, like I mentioned, or some super complex financial engineering investment, my eyes are going to glaze over pretty soon. But if you're like, you can buy this rock and hold on to it for 2 years and then like quadruple your money, I'm like, yeah, I'm in for that. So that's why I really like that investment idea.
I like it too. It's interesting. I mean, it sounds like I love getting insight into, what wasn't at the conference, but it's very interesting to get an insight into like effectively a mastermind for investing, right? You bring people together, they share their best ideas. Everyone can kind of like, everyone benefits from it because at the end of the day, you're all trying to make a return and sharing these ideas. If somebody else finds a good one and joins you on it, it's great. And that's kind of the core as well here. It's like, what can we find that's off the beaten path, right?
Absolutely. It's inspiring to be around those people. It's inspiring to be around people that just challenge the way you're thinking and push you. And so I'll really quickly tell you about what I shared about Guyana. We already made the first episode about it. So the 3 companies that I picked for Guyana, the first one is ExxonMobil. And the reason why I presented about ExxonMobil is because when we were there, we were very politely told that ExxonMobil is more or less an extension of the U.S. government. And it's one of those companies that's too big to fail. So if you believe that oil and gas are going to be a theme for the coming years and you want a safe way to play that, ExxonMobil is one of those. The second company I picked was Tenaris.
Well, also just to continue on that, like one thing that has been interesting and developing since we went to Guyana is they keep discovering more oil. And it's like every month or so, there's a new news story. Exxon has expanded, and they've their initial discovery, which was very large, continues to get larger. So if you look at the amount that they purchased the rights to the oil for versus how much oil they're discovering, it's pretty incredible. So just to piggyback on that, like it's ongoing. This whole discovery in Guyana and Suriname, it's ongoing.
Yeah, and again, we mentioned in the last podcast that Exxon will be the majority of Exxon's oil that they drill for will be coming from the Guyana region, and as you just mentioned, they're just continually finding new wells and more oil, and this is going to go on. And then the U.S. has continually ramped up their support for Guyana
said,
as a
hey,
nation and
yeah,
Exxon.
we're
So this match made in
there's
heaven.
mutual interest there.
Yeah, yeah, and I say match made in heaven as a kind of tongue in cheek. But okay, second company that I picked or presented was Tenaris, and I had not even really known about this company Tenaris until I wrote about Guyana, about us going down there, and somebody reached back out and said, "Hey, I work for this company called Tenaris, and we're opening like more offices down there, sending more people down there." And I was like, "This is interesting." And then Austin, when you and I were there, I remember driving past this field, and there was just pipes, these like
Pipes.
pipes. I'm like, okay, but forever. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my god, that's a lot of pipes. And turns out Tenaris is one of the largest. It's called OCTG, which is Oil Country Tubular Goods, and they make these pipes for the oil industry. They have contracts all over the world, and they happen to have a 10-year contract with Exxon in Guyana. And the reason for me picking this company was, hey, if you want to invest in Guyana in an easy way, you can pick Tenaris. And the company itself, like I said, they make pipes, which to me is like kind of like that rock idea. Pretty simple idea. Just roll some metal into a pipe, and
I mean, it's a legit picks and shovels.
Totally.
Yeah.
So,
Play.
again, do your own research, but the company's really cheap right now. They got a ton of cash. They got all these long-term contracts. Very interesting company. And then the third opportunity was the Guyana Stock Exchange. So one of the guys that joined us on our trip to Guyana, his name's Tom, giving Tom a shout out because he's been on a lot of our adventures. He invested.
Tom's a legendary guy.
Yeah, he's a legend. Tom the legend. He went to Guyana, or he didn't even go to Guyana. He called up the Guyana Stock Exchange in like 2019. And this is when I first wrote about it. And he was like, I want to put whatever X amount of money in every single stock you have. And then 2 or 3 years later, he sold them all for like a 2X. So just this general rise of Guyana, didn't matter what stock you picked, he doubled his money. And I think that opportunity is still available. So you go call up one of the brokers in Guyana, just say like, hey, what are your favorite companies? Throw some money in some companies that are operating in Guyana. Just the growth of the companies, a tide lifts all ships. That's probably the opportunity in the Guyana Stock Exchange.
Tom is hilarious. When we were down in Guyana, he was telling me a little bit about Tom's older and he, has been investing in lots of these emerging frontier markets. It's like very fascinating to him. And we were talking about kind of how he manages his money and like if he works with investment advisors or does all of it on his own. He was telling me, he was like, I worked with an investment advisor at some point in my life, but as I get older, he's like, they have assumptions about my risk tolerance. And, I'll tell you what, like, they're wrong. He's like, they always think my risk tolerance is low, but it's pretty damn high. I'm willing to call Guyana and like invest, in my 70s, invest in the stock market. Just a hilarious guy. And so, yeah, give us kind of a rundown a little bit. So tell us a little bit about what you can do, and how you found this company.
Yeah. So as far as the Guyana Stock Exchange, within the exchange, there's a bunch of companies. One of them is called RDL, which is Rupununi Development Land Corporation. And they have a bunch of land on the inland of Guyana. And the land, when I say a bunch, it's like thousands of square miles and thousands, tens of thousands of hectares. So it's so massive that they don't even really report it properly, which goes to show, again, how undeveloped this market is. And so RDL, which is traded on the Guyana Stock Exchange, would be a play on, hey, this country is opening up more. There's a bunch of land owned by this publicly traded company. And if I believe that this country is going to continue to rise, that land that's this company owns, which you can buy stock in right now, is probably a good play just to, hey, I'm going to throw some chips on the table here. Again, who knows what's going to happen? But these are those gambles that you're like, I'm looking at it, and all signs point to up.
It was interesting too, because the way we discovered this was we were looking we're going to head back down to Guyana, and we're looking at really like Google Maps, trying to figure out where are some of the eco-tourism plays, like what are the things going on in the country. And we kept coming to this area in Guyana that is a little bit different. It's got like the topography is different. It's more kind of savanna, like ranch land. There's like these monster anteaters. There's jaguars, and people are going out there, and it's become a little bit of a tourist destination. We were having this conversation, and then, you called me up like 2 days later. It's like, and you're like, yeah, I found this company that basically it's publicly traded that owns like most of it, and they used to have a massive, I think it was like beef farm, right? Was that initially what it was?
Yeah, it was a big livestock. I mean, it was the largest cattle ranch in the world in the 1800s and early 1900s. And yeah, so I just did some research and found out, hey, it's publicly traded. Like, what are the odds of that? This way to buy land. So at the Weird Shit Investing Conference, when I presented these ideas, first of all, everyone was pumped because they could talk to me about, hey, you actually went to Guyana, you actually saw this. Like, let's talk about it. And then once I gave this one last, interesting idea, a lot of, even like some of the hedge fund guys were like, that's kind of interesting. Maybe that's worth a little gamble. Quick side note, and I'm excited to dive into this topic later, but one of the hedge fund managers there is buying up debt in Venezuela. And it's something that you and I have talked about offline.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to do a Venezuela episode coming up, but we're trying to find the specific opportunities that are going on there. Anyways, this hedge fund guy is like, oh yeah, we're already doing it. We're already buying up all this debt that's in Venezuela that we believe is going to, explode in value because Venezuela is improving, and that debt that is selling for pennies on the dollar right now is probably going to be coming a lot closer to parity. So that means that these hedge funds are going to crush it. So I did connect with that guy. I'm using air quotes on that guy because he's a real deal, and we're going to try and arrange something where we dive into more what's going on there. And the fact that we were in Guyana right there, he was pumped and wanted to collaborate somehow.
I think, but again, we'll do a full episode on Venezuela, but it's like very clear from conversations that I've had with people down in Venezuela recently that we're in probably the worst position as Americans living in the US to understand what's actually going on in Venezuela, because we go through such an extreme propaganda filter of what's being fed to us. But I've had many conversations with people on the ground in Venezuela who are sharing a very different story of what it's like and the shift between what it's been when, Maduro was first elected to what it is now, and like how there's changes in crime. It's become more expensive, but also become more stable, all these different things. So there's lots to dive in there, and we'll have to do that on another episode. But
yeah, and I think that's the bigger picture, not only with our podcast, but investing in general, is that typically the investment narratives that are being shoved down the public's throats they're being forced upon people for a certain agenda. And I'm not necessarily saying it's like evil or anything. I'm just saying that, there's interests in having people buy up certain things. Meanwhile, there's all kinds of interesting unexplored opportunities that people don't want to talk about because it doesn't, scratch someone's back. And Venezuela is a perfect story of there's something else going on down there that we're not aware of, and there's huge opportunity for those who are willing to take action right now. And that's the same with Guyana, and it's the same with every opportunity that was presented at this Weird Shit Investing Conference. So looking forward to exploring a lot more of those.
Yeah. Awesome episode. Dude, just fun to kind of connect and talk about this. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. The best possible way that you can support this show is if you like it, go write us a review, subscribe, write us a review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and share this with a friend, right? Share this with somebody else who you think would get some value out of it. That's the best way to support us, and just continue to be a subscriber. We'll keep bringing you interesting ideas that are off the beaten track, and yeah, love it. Thanks, Cody. Thanks for giving us the download. We'll see you guys on the next episode.
See ya.